Essentially, stage 1 sleep, we go into this state called a hypnagogic state, where we essentially start to hallucinate. We don't dream, we dream in REM sleep. But as humans, we seek stimulation and comfort, and we mistake that then for relaxation. We know it's massively important. We know that you die if you don't dream. Right?
I don't remember the last time I dreamt.
Yeah, people are like, I'm going to die. No, you're fine. You do dream, you just don't remember. If you weren't dreaming, you wouldn't be walking around, right? You'd be gone.
I'm notorious for waking up, my alarm goes off, and I'm like, I feel like I could sleep for another week.
I agree. Charlie, I'm with you on this. Oh my God, I feel terrible. I feel like so lethargic. I feel like I need another 9 hours sleep, you know? They're drinking this, it's poison, and they're drinking, and it's making them do this. It's like, why are they destroying themselves like this? There's nothing worse than trying to sleep, you know? It's like, I say to people, you're actually better off trying to stay awake.
Welcome back to the Not Quite Pod. Today we've got Tom with us. Tom, do you just quickly want to introduce yourself and let everyone know a bit about yourself?
Sure, my name is Tom Coleman. I'm a sleep coach and a health scientist, and I've worked in the area of sleep for about the past 10 years. So I'm happy to put you to sleep or keep you awake.
I'm actually really excited about this as someone that struggles with their sleep, because I have a very overactive brain, and also I'm a very weird person in terms of I always feel like I don't quite fit in the two groups of night owl, morning person. I am what is well known as a perpetually tired pigeon is what I am. I'm never my ideal work day, I swear, would be 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. because that's like prime functioning times for me.
So that those chronotypes, like many people do fit into them. I do. I mean, I'm a night owl. I find morning people exceptionally annoying. Stop asking me questions. Just leave me alone, please. I'm not good. But as I've got older, it's kind of changed slightly. And then, you know, I have a son, and that kind of messed it around a little bit. But the key thing there, Charlie, and you said it, is that sleep is a very personal issue. And think about it this way, right? There is a very distinctive advantage to having different individuals within a whole social group that are alert at different times and productive at different times, right? So it's very advantageous for humans that some of those crazy people are up all happy early in the morning, and some of them are up late at night, right? So it's an advantage.
I mean, it's a weird one as well, because I suppose that works in the way our society is built in terms of the different work schedules that people have. Like, you've got your classic 9-to-5ers, you've got your entrepreneurs that are all over the shop, and then you've got your shift workers that are kind of, again, all over the shop, but tend to be more of the evenings and stuff like that. So I think that's a massive thing. And it was actually something I was going to come on to is what you've seen in the data, you've seen the clients you've worked with around shift work, because there is some data to show that shift work actually impacts the increases your chances of getting a lot of diseases, cancer included. So I wanted to see what your viewpoint was.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we have a debt of gratitude to the shift workers, right? So we have this kind of demand now that, you know, I want safe streets, I want a good medical system. If my child is sick, I demand that my child be looked after, or my elderly parent, or me, or whatever. So if we want all of these things, then somebody has to do it. Okay, so like, people don't seem to realize the extent of it, right? I'm a strong advocate for shift workers. I will say that our society is built on the back of shift workers, is built on their health, right? So every single piece of medical equipment in a hospital is made by a shift worker. All of the doctors, the consultants, the nurses, the midwives, all of those people, the ambulance drivers, the frontline staff, all of those are shift workers. Our police force, if there's a crash, if there's an incident, our streets are safe because we have a police force out there, okay? manufacturing, pharmaceutical, you look across the board, hotels. I mean, that's a 24-hour operation. If I'm off to work in the morning and I want fresh coffee and a croissant, somebody is baking that croissant at 2 o'clock in the morning, and some delivery driver is all night driving around. Okay, so the shift workers, they do literally sacrifice themselves, their health, to bring us what we want when we need it. And there is data there. If we look at Russell Foster, and his latest book from Russell Foster is the professor of neurobiology in Oxford, the Nutfield Institute. So he talks about the increased risk of certain cancers, and indeed, the nurses are one of the most studied groups. So it's not the shift; it's the lack of sleep, right? Just to be clear, it's the lack of sleep, because some night shift workers do adapt. Now, very few. The percentage is small, but it's due to the impact of not allowing the body and the mind to repair that we have an increase of things like cardiovascular heart disease, type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes also. So there is a lot there for the shift worker. It's a modifiable risk. So everything in health, because I'm a health scientist, is either we kind of look at it as health protective behaviors, health risk behaviors. So I always say, look, don't focus on that, because maybe you cannot control that within your life. Focus on what you can control with the risk factors. Reduce those risk factors and increase health protective behaviors like exercise and your social network and things like that.
It's interesting you say, because one of the things I was going to ask, as for me, and I'm imagining I'm not the only one, is sometimes it feels like I'm not the one in control of my sleep pattern. So, for example, like I gave the example at the beginning saying that I was a perpetually tired pigeon, and the reason why I say that is because I really struggle to fall asleep early, but then also find myself struggling to get up early in the mornings. So I end up in this weird position of my partner's already fallen asleep. She's off and running. It's only 8:30. I'm still there at half past 10, 11, going, I will get tired eventually. And then my brain decides, your next big business idea, this is where we're going to think about it. Yeah. How do you manage that for anyone struggling? Because as I say, I feel like if you fall into one of the traps, you can kind of get yourself into not fall into one of the traditional circadian rhythms. You can get yourself into a bit of a rhythm with it where if you're a night owl, you know that, and you can kind of work around that. Whereas if you're kind of in this middle state, you just feel like you're just bad at sleep.
No, well, yeah, I mean, here's the thing. It's a case of entrainment. Now, we have genetics that will determine certain aspects of sleep. They're known as clock genes. Okay, it doesn't mean that that's it. That's my gene. That's the way I am. Like as a night owl, I had to completely retrain myself when my son came along, because he was awake early. That little man was up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, like all happy, and like waiting to be played with and bouncing around, and So I was a person who used to go to bed at like 1 a.m. Then I was in bed at like 8:30 and I was falling asleep. So here's the thing, you can entrain yourself, okay? You can entrain yourself. It takes a lot of discipline. And I mean, you mentioned it earlier on, the racing mind. That's very powerful. I mean, I am the same. You start thinking, that'd be a good idea, wouldn't it? And your mind just decides to start doing an analysis of business opportunities, your financial situation, your relationship, what somebody said to you 3 weeks ago, and what colour car you might get next, whatever. I mean, it's like your mind takes out a Rolodex of things. What we worry about tonight? Money? No. It's crazy, right? So I think like a huge part of sleep is sleep is the result of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, it's a barometer to see how well we're dealing with life and stress. So people who are very stressed out, their sleep is disrupted. There's no doubt. Because the same systems that control stress control sleep. Okay? So one of the key things here is to learn how to de-escalate, unwind, and, transform, like go from that sympathetic state of action into the parasympathetic state of, passive relaxation. So, and the mind is crucial within that. I mean, it's and we know that with kids, with children, we know, like, don't wind them up, wind them down. But yet ourselves, we arrive in bed like, oh my God, what a day. I'm wrecked. Oh my God, what day is today? Did I get the bins? I have to email her tomorrow. I've got so much on. I have to do this, and what do? Start scrolling. So like, I think we can entrain ourselves, but as humans, we seek stimulation and comfort, and we mistake that then for relaxation.
Yeah, I definitely fall in that camp. I almost I need that. My brain needs to be doing something. I can't not do, and I really struggle with that. And I think as well, for me, when it comes to sleep, it was very much I had to knacker myself out to get myself to that point of sleep. And that's always been the way it's kind of worked for me. But one thing I wanted to come on to, because it's something that comes up in a lot of, if you read into sleep and the advice comes up, one of the big things is make sure your bed is nothing else but where you sleep. Is the theory that a lot of people come out with. And I wanted to sort of give my 2 cents, because I think a lot of people are in a similar situation with me. I still live with my parents. Me and my partner, our space is kind of... the room is it's a multifunctional space, so it's very hard to implement that strategy of only this happens here, so then your brain knows, okay, this is where we sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this with professional athletes, right? Because I've done a lot of work with professional athletes, and maybe they're traveling away for games, and it's like I try and get them to recreate the sensory stuff and the routine rather than the place, because it can be detrimental to sleep. The brain does work from association. Okay, now what happens is people get anxious about sleep, and the bed can turn into a place of torture, a place of, oh my God, I'm just rolling around like a rotisserie chicken. There's nothing worse than trying to sleep. It's like, I say to people, you're actually better off trying to stay awake. You tell yourself, I'm going to stay awake. I'm going to try and stay awake for. It's kind of like more of a mindset rather than a place, because as we all know, other things can happen in the bed, right?
Yep.
Not an expert in those areas, but I mean, so it's kind of like the smells, the routine, the sounds that I get people to, even if that's grabbing a pillow, right? And for the players who travel, for the rugby players I work with, your pillowcase, it's got that familiar smell. All these guys would bring their pillowcase, and in the hotel they would swap over their pillowcases and do the little routine the same, and that's how you train the mind then.
Because one thing that I started playing with, because it realised it was something that worked for me, was showers before bed. So I'm a notoriously hot sleeper. It's like, as soon as I get into bed, it's like someone turned the thermostat up on just me. Right. So I always found that having a shower before brought my core temperature down and almost went, right, okay, that's time to sleep. So I think you're right. I think that. So I mean, I'm not saying I keep that up all the time. I wish I did, but I think association is probably something that a lot of people can benefit with in terms of, like you say, the sounds. Because I think a lot of people as well get benefit from white noise when they're sleeping. Actually, what is the research in your opinion on white noise? Because some people say that you should be in a as much as possible, be in like a completely silent, dark room. But then a lot of sleepers find benefit and comfort in white noise and those familiar sort of, I suppose, lights in the room.
Yeah, ideally, with light and dark. So we're looking at all the different things that the Zeitgerbers or time givers or external things that influence our sleep here, because you mentioned a few of them already. So I'll work through them, right? So temperature is key. Temperature is huge, because what you're doing is your core body temperature has to drop by 1 to 2 degrees for you to achieve sleep. As your core body temperature drops, that signals to the brain to produce more melatonin. So you go into a hot shower in the evening, and your body pushes blood out to your extremities to cool down. And then you're a hot sleeper. Your body's just dumping heat, get rid of the heat. So within your 24-hour circadian rhythm, your core body temperature is at its highest at 5 p.m. and at its lowest at 5 a.m. So what you're doing is correct. It's like you're getting this rebound effect. The body is responding and is trying to cool down to achieve sleep. So the warm shower will help you with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's super. Like, and sorry, what was the other part?
The other part of the question was the question around white noise and familiar sounds and lights.
Yeah. So the sound, I mean, there is research, there's a fair bit of research to say that it helps people to fall asleep quicker. A word of warning for young babies and children not to play it. That was actually detrimental to their sleep. So that's what the research says on the white noise. And there's white noise, and there's brown noise, and there's pink noise, and there's lots of different noises. I'll tell you what, the best one that works for you, that's the best one. The one that works for you. So it's kind of like, we alluded to it earlier on. Give your mind something to do. So here's my kind of trick for you, right? And I think this is something. It's taken me a long time to get my head around this and to kind of discover this is the way to do it, right? Because when we sleep, we fall into different stages. We go from stage 1, stage 2, and we can explain those. But essentially, stage 1 sleep, we go into this state called a hypnagogic state, where we essentially start to hallucinate. We don't dream, we dream in REM sleep. And it's similar enough to dreaming insofar as it's like that daydreaming state. Have you ever sat by a river or just sat and you just get taken away and you're just kind of completely daydreaming about stuff? That's what we want to try and mimic. And that's what will transport us into stage 1 sleep. Now, sometimes that involves giving your mind some cognitive chewing gum, what I call cognitive chewing gum. Yeah. Something to do or to entertain yourself that's it's interesting enough to hold your attention, but it's not fascinating enough to light you up, right? Yeah. So I can put on some Joe Rogan, some mysteries of the pyramids, stuff like that, whereas my mind's like, oh yeah, this is kind of interesting. You start listening to it, and then your mind just starts drifting away, you start daydreaming, boom, and then you're asleep. Yeah. If you don't do that, as a species, we are hardwired to worry. Right? So part of, successful evolution is we can look into the future and predict danger. And that has served us very well. So your brain is actually hardwired to worry. So, like, if you don't give it something to do, visualization, Joe Rogan, the Not Quite podcast, whatever you wish, but give it something. And then that hypnagogic state, you need to build that bridge. Build that bridge to sleep, because you kind of just go, oh, just stop now, mind. Just like, it's actually a good exercise to tell yourself also, listen, you need to calm down here. I need to get some sleep, right?
Yeah. So, and I think, you touched on it there. I wanted to get you to speak on the different stages of sleep, because one thing I found really interesting reading into some of the stuff you spoke on before is the fact, I didn't even know this before this, is the beginning of your sleep is more used for physical repair, and then your second half of your sleep is used for mental repair. And I was like, that makes a whole lot of sense, because probably the bit that I always miss out on is the back end. Yeah. And that's why it's important to understand yourself what your sleep requirement is. Because if you're missing out in the back end, most of the physical repair that happens in the body happens when we're sleeping, because growth hormone is secreted during slow wave sleep, which is deep sleep, which is stage 3-4 sleep. Now, when we sleep in 90-minute cycles. So we fall down we go through the stage 1, 2, 3, and we're spending a lot of time in deep sleep. And then we dream very briefly, and then we go back again, and we go down. So these cycles are happening. During your first 2 cycles, you spend most of your time in deep sleep. And then you progressively spend less and less, to the point that your last sleep cycle, you're spending about 1 hour in REM sleep, dreaming. Okay. So most of the psychological repair is happening in the lighter phases of sleep, especially REM sleep. So why, it brings about the question, kind of, why do we dream and stuff? Like, it's so crucial. And we kind of know too, if we're not getting enough sleep, our mood is impacted. Literally how we perceive the world, because part of the responsibility or part of the role of dreaming, we can only guess at this. We cannot actually confirm any of this. Like, why do we dream? We know it's massively important. We know that you die if you don't dream, right?
not remember your dream, that's okay. Right? People are like, oh my God.
I literally just had the same thought. I was like, I don't remember the last time I dreamt.
Yeah, people are like, I'm going to die. No, it's fine. You do dream, you just don't remember. If you weren't dreaming, you wouldn't be walking around, right? You'd be gone. Why do we dream? Emotional regulation. So what the brain does is it picks out all the emotional stuff that happened during the day and goes, right, we'll assimilate this into our subconscious emotional library.
Yeah.
Okay. If we've had a very stressful event, the brain goes, we don't need this. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. So it's like cleaning out your fridge at night. If we had a very positive emotional experience, the brain goes, keep this. This is good. We like this. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. And then it's your brain is also like, why do we have weird dreams? Well, it's a virtual reality simulator for threats. Yeah. So your brain recognizes, okay, I'm having a tough time at work here. This is a threat. Okay, let's practice. And it practices in a dream form where the consequences of your actions aren't real. Okay, so you can fail 100 times without consequence in your dreams. So it's really important that we're getting sufficient. And people obsess about deep sleep. Light sleep is just as important. Absolutely. Lymphatic drainage happens. Your brain cleans itself at night while you sleep. That's happening in light sleep. Okay, so don't undervalue light sleep. People who wake up and go, oh, I want more sleep, but it's not going to be as good. It's going to be it's going to be very beneficial for you. The light sleep.
Is that even no matter how short the period? Because obviously there's almost this theory that you if you're having a nap, don't try and drop into deep sleep because then it's going to be harder. It's going to cause problems.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. If you're napping, we go for a short nap. For the shift worker, you can do a full 90-minute cycle. So for the shift worker, if they're heading into a night shift at 6 or 7 p.m., maybe 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's your chance then to have a 90-minute full cycle. You'll feel much better, right? For the normal person who naps, don't go over like 25, 30 minutes. Because if you do, you're going to wake yourself in the middle of deep sleep and you're going to feel like somebody drugged you. You're going to be like, oh, that was a bad idea. Why did I nap? Right. Yeah. So, keep it short. It is still very beneficial for you to have a short nap.
What about in terms of, because there's a lot of discussion about it's kind of like your calories in versus calories out. That's personal to everyone. And sleep, from what I understand, it's the same of what you need to work out how much sleep is a good amount for you as opposed to, it's the same with anything. There's guidance to say this is sort of a ballpark to look in between. Yeah. But in terms of if someone really wants to go, okay, I really want to find my optimal level of sleep, how best to go about that? Obviously you can go around and say, just test it. So spend a few nights going, right, I got 7 hours tonight. Okay, then I'm going to try and see how that works. But obviously that's not always, it's one of those hard things to experiment with because as we've just spoke about, your brain sometimes just has different ideas.
Yeah. It is tricky. I mean, I think many of us know, I mean, ideally the general recommendation is 5 cycles a night, which is 7.5 hours, 5 90-minute cycles, right? Some people are okay on 6 hours. I would always kind of look at sleep over the course of the week as well, okay, rather than one night. We tend to get very focused on last night and tonight, that's it. We kind of think in that 2 to 3 day framework. Yep. But if I assess someone's mental fatigue levels and physical fatigue levels, I will look at a week's worth of data. So think about your week, okay, rather than a night or two. Now, a good guide is like, there are natural dips in your circadian rhythm. In your 24-hour clock. They're natural dips, energy dips. So, expect those. That's fine. But are you feeling really like daytime tiredness? Do you feel lethargic? How do you feel, a couple of hours after you wake up, an hour after you wake up? Do you find yourself drifting off to sleep? The first place to most of us should be looking is like, let's extend it and see how I feel, generally speaking, over, So do that for not one night, do it for a week or two, if you can, if possible. But if you feel very fatigued, you're tired, you're yawning, energy is low, is it your sleep? It could be indicative of an underlying issue as well. So, yeah.
What about in terms of, because one other thing we always talk about is like, and I'm guilty of this, I'm notorious for waking up, my alarm goes off and I'm like, I feel like I could sleep for another week. How do you, hack the fact that, because you hear all these people go, oh, I woke up and felt great this morning. I'm like, when the fuck does that happen? That never happens to me.
I agree, Charlie. I'm with you on this. I've worked with people for 10 years, right? Like, of all the people that I've spoken to, because everyone who meets me, they want to speak about sleep, right?
Yeah.
And I think two people have said to me, oh, I wake up and I feel refreshed. I'm like, I don't. I wake up and feel like, oh God, and most of us, but I don't know these people. I don't know what they're taking. I don't know what kind of lifestyle they're leading. But like, there's very few people who I know. Now, here's my measure. My measure is, how do you feel like 30 minutes after you get up? So get up. How do you feel then? Because the world is a different place to when you first maybe wake up. Because I mean, I love my sleep, and generally I sleep well. But like, I'm fine. I mean, once I get up and I start moving, I'm okay. That's a good measure,
I think I'm quite similar to you. My partner knows don't speak to me until I've had at least my first coffee. It's yes or no questions. Other than that, don't ask me any and this is where me and my partner don't work, because she's like, oh, I've woken up and I've got this thing, and I'm just grunting and being like, just don't talk to me.
Yeah, I'm just like, now it's like, if it gets to like 2 or 3 questions, that's my bar. I'm like, I just go,
yeah.
Too many questions. That's all I just say. Too many questions, and it could be like, "Good morning, how are you?" Whatever. I'm like, "Oh, too many questions," and she starts laughing. But she knows, she just leave me alone, and I'm fine then after like 20 minutes, bring it off,
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. The other thing, we've spoken about a lot about like managing your sleep and how much sleep to get, but there's the other part of the discussion of this idea of sleep debt, and the fact that if you miss out on a night's sleep, it's kind of, the world remembers, and you've got this like line of credit that you've got to try and work back. Yeah. What's your viewpoint on that? Because whenever I hear it, I'm like, that's crazy, because I'm 25. There's certainly some weekends I'm like, oh my God, I was out so much later than I should have been. And I'm sitting there thinking, my credit's going to be terrible.
You're okay, Charlie. I'm telling you now, mate. You're 25. I'm twice your age. You're absolutely fine. When you're 25, you can get away with it. You can kind of, you can survive off very little. Because like, I can talk about the ideal scenario of 7.5 hours a night. Isn't that great? Wonderful. Then life happens. And then you just get you're just like, you can't sleep, or whatever happens, or you have child comes along in your life and it's like, oh my God, so life happens. And that's the way it is. We can survive off so little. I talk about what's optimum, and that's not, I don't want people getting sleep anxiety because they're not getting the absolute pinnacle of what they should be getting, either. Like, we can build up sleep debt. Where it's dangerous is driving. Where it's dangerous is driving, is operating heavy machinery, because your ability to make good decisions, your reaction time just drops off. That's why I was working with Conor McGregor. I was a sleep coach prior to the Mayweather fight. I was analysing his sleep patterns. That's why I worked with professional athletes, because, the reaction times are down if they're not getting sufficient sleep. So that's my thing about sleep debt, is like, look, evaluate it over the course of the week. The experts will all say, go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, but that's not real life, and then you have sleep debt. So, that's your opportunity to maybe it's the weekend, your opportunity to have an extra 90-minute cycle,
Is that optimal? Because I mean, I'm very much guilty of that behaviour of, like, during the week I'm up early most days, then at the weekend, particularly Saturday mornings, it tends to be I turn over and go, Jesus Christ, that's the time. Is that a good thing to do? Because I often sit there and go, is it though? Because then you're getting yourself into a rhythm that isn't necessarily the best rhythm, but then it's the only time that my life allows for me to catch up a little bit and go, do you know what?
Yeah. The advice is that, like, you don't do anything differently, right? So if you couldn't sleep the night before, or if you have sleep debt, you get up at the same time, you continue on, you do the same exercise. If you do you do the same thing, and then that night the sleep pressure will have built sufficiently that will push you right into sleep and keep you there, But the weekend is kind of like, I'm kind of a little bit against the grain on this. Where, like, I just see people stressed out of their mind now. Like, I just see so many people with demands. Like, and I'm like, where's the me time? Where's the time where you can kind of chill out? Like, so that might be that Saturday morning. in bed, just chilling out, doing whatever. You know, I mean, I'm all for that. Like, don't give yourself a hard time over stuff like that. That's what I would say.
Is it that because I had this thought literally yesterday morning because I found that I slept a lot deeper. Is it a case of if you're having a bad time with sleep, can you have a better sleep in a shorter time period? Because I sat there and thought, I haven't been asleep for that long, but I feel a lot better today than I did yesterday, say. Is that possible?
Yeah, it's like feelings are tough to, like, self-reporting in sleep is not very accurate. And sometimes what happens, and you might have experienced this as well, is that if you do get 9 hours, say like we'd say that you've had sleep debt and then you've had a really busy day and you've had a very active day physically, and then you just crash and boom, got 9 hours. And you would think, right, in theory, that I should wake up and feel better after 9 hours. But after 9 or 10 hours, people wake up like, oh my God, I feel terrible. I feel like so lethargic. I feel like I need another 9 hours sleep, you know? So our feeling is not a good guide to what's best for us. You know, the systems shut down. They take that opportunity. If they see that opportunity to get 9 hours and you have sleep debt, they just unplug everything and go, right, you're out cold, right? And that's why you feel so tired then. You've been under for so long and there's been so much sleep pressure and adenosine and stuff like that's why you feel like that. But like, I mean, it's if you can get a rhythm, it will help. If you know, and like you can, and like I like to empower people. Like, you know, you start telling yourself what you can and can't do. You know, you start dictating the terms and then training yourself, you know.
And I wanted to, obviously, we've just spoken there about building your own process, and you touched on there that you've worked with some really high-end athletes, Conor being one of them. What do you look at when you're working with someone that is that high performance and very much like every second counts and every little detail counts? What sort of stuff are you looking for there instead of what you're looking for with, say, your average Joe?
Yeah, so like, I mean, people like the kind of question with athletes, it's like Steve Redgrave said in his book, you know, like people would come to me with different things and I would always just ask one question, the 5-time Olympic rower, you know, will it make the boat go faster? So it's like, when we talk about sleep, people seem to think, even within elite sports, some people think, oh, it's the other 1 or 2%. Well, no, it's not. Actually, it's a foundational piece. It's an absolute foundational piece. It's not 1 or 2%. It's far more than 1 or 2%.
Yeah.
Okay. So we look at where can we extract value. There's so much science now in performance, in strength and conditioning, in psychology, in skills, the skills it takes to be at a top level. So we look at all of these things that feed into ultimately an athlete's performance on the day, right?
Yep.
And there has been a shift now in leading global institutes like the Australian Institute of Sport, where they're going, look, we're actually not focusing on recovery as much as we should. It's like the old school of work harder. You know, the harder you work, the more pain you feel, the more you sweat, the sorer your muscles. That's the, you know, that, no, it's not. Okay, so it's like what would be, you know, better. So I suppose I was brought in to kind of focus Conor's mind on that, on the idea of sleep as a tool. I think it was Jason Bourne that said sleep is a weapon in one of the Bourne Super. Yeah, but I worked with U.S. military technology for a couple of years. I was privy to a lot of documentation from the Walter Reed Institute on the focus that the U.S. Special Forces have on sleep is immense. And the research they do on it. So sleep is, I mean, their general, one of their 3-star generals said sleep can be the difference between winning and losing, you know. So it is absolutely huge. So the first thing I suppose to get Conor to reframe how he viewed sleep is not just a waste of time. You know, it was like, I kind of asked him how much rest do you get between rounds? And would it be, if you had 30 seconds or 2 minutes, which would be best? Oh, okay. So it's like, you know, sleep is like it's like it's like the draw back, it's like the pull back. You can get more power that way, right? I had lots of different things for him. You know, the tattoo of the tiger. You know,
Yeah.
You watch a tiger, man. They're just like skulking around, lying down,
Yeah.
sleeping. They're resting for 20 hours a day. Now, when they switch on, do you ever see a tiger going from like that?
Yeah.
To
It's
switching
0
on?
to 100.
And they just like, they are absolutely zoned in. Like, so that's what we want to be like. But nowadays we're all just like in this high alert state most of the time, and
All the time.
we're in between frazzled, stressed, and exhausted. We've lost that ability to switch off.
Drop off. And I think that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of studies that show that tech is one of the worst things for that. Falls into the massive trap. We all sit there in front of the TV. And I think, because there's contradicting info around the blue light discussion as well, as to whether blue light impacts it, whether it doesn't. There's a lot of contradictory, and it's the same in the fitness industry. Everything contradicts one another. 1 minute it's bananas a superfood, next minute it's the devil's food. It's like...
I mean, that's tough to navigate. You know, the blue light, it's kind of, well, again, I referenced Russell Foster from the Nuffield Institute, and you know, he said that, and like, this guy is one of the leading experts in the world. This is the guy that discovered that we have photoganglion cells in the eye that are activated by light. Russell Foster, he's immense. So he is. So he said that, look, it's the blue light. It would take a hell of a lot for it to disrupt. And he said, well, I know, and you know, actually, is that it's not just the blue light, it's the alerting activity of what you're doing on the phone.
Ping,
I mean,
ping,
if
ping.
you're on TikTok, forget about it. It's stimulating.
Yeah.
It's highly stimulating, and it's disruptive, and you don't feel good after it. That lights up your brain, and you usually, when you secrete dopamine, because it's a dopamine device, all right? Usually when you secrete dopamine, you secrete cortisol in tiny amounts with it. So people who are telling me, I'm relaxing, lying there scrolling, I'm relaxed. You're not, mate, because if I do relaxation exercise with you, you will feel
the difference.
Relaxed. Yeah.
Coming back to Conor briefly, what was his biggest challenge? Like, what was the biggest challenge working with him? An area that you really needed to work on?
It was that switch. It was that realizing the importance of sleep and switching off, because he could be
Always
training
on.
at like 12 o'clock at night, you know. He was always bloody late as well. but look, he was a nice guy to work with. I have to say, he was very, very relaxed, very nice guy, very down to earth, very mannerly. Believe it or not, like, you know, this thing with the media, that's one persona.
Yeah, that's
persona, whatever. But like, I worked with him. I never had any issues with Conor, and he was very nice to me. I was at all his training sessions, and he welcomed me, you know, at those sessions, you know. So, but yeah, it was like kind of realizing the importance and getting him to just like you know, get to bed.
Was there anything that you gave? Was there any like hack? Anything that you massively helped him? Was there anything where you saw sort of the light bulb moment of, okay, some of the pennies dropped?
Yeah, well, just when I done that reframing with him and got him to kind of realise how important sleep was, because it's like he had this kind of idea that's a waste of time. But like, you know, the more I train, the better it is. But like when it was like, oh right, you know, like the analogy with the tiger and stuff like that really helped. So like, you know, those are the key kind of moments where you go, oh yeah, you know, because I know it impacts every aspect of physiology and psychology. People say, oh, does it impact this? Does it impact that? Yes, it does. It impacts every area of your health, your mental health, your mood, your social, everything, you know. So it really does.
It's really interesting because I would have thought, I mean, I nowhere near the level of Conor, but I obviously come from a sporting background, spending a lot of time competitive swimming, and something very early on we learned was your recovery and you getting stronger happens when you're resting. It happens when you're sleeping. So I'm surprised that was something that Conor needed to work on, because I always thought it was like one of the first principles you get taught in sport is, the gym does the tearing, the sleeping does the fixing. That was like the first thing we got taught.
People, you'd be surprised. I mean, I've worked with a lot of provinces in rugby over here. I've done talks for Munster academy players, Munster senior players, Ulster, Connacht. I've worked with Irish rugby players and stuff like that, you know. So it's like, I think sometimes there's so much there that you kind of forget sometimes. Like, you know, there's such an emphasis on training, there's such an emphasis on nutrition. It's a lot to take on for guys, and you kind of forget the basics. And usually what happens is sometimes, like, and I still work with some of these guys today, is like the sleep starts to suffer because of the life or issues, and then they come to me, and then I'm like, you know, when you start to fix the sleep, when the sleep comes right, then you can handle everything else. But I think there's so much coming at athletes nowadays. You know, there's and the margins are so fine, and there's so much pressure and everything else that, you know, that people forget. You know, but look, if they can get that piece right. If they can, and do you know what? They're great to work with, because unlike normal people, right? Generally, they do exactly as you bloody tell them, right? You know, I've had people who kind of like, they have sleep issues, and I look at their lifestyle, I go, you have to change this, and they don't want to. They're like, oh no, I just want you to fix the sleep. You know, I'm happy enough the way I'm leading my life, and that's like kind of going into a sauna and saying, oh look, it's 110 degrees, it's too hot. Can we lower the temperature? And they just want to get the thermometer and lower that. You know?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy that we still have. I mean, as I say, with athletes, I think you naturally go into that thing of you want to get better, so you're like, go, I'll do whatever I can. Whereas I think it comes back to one of the questions I was going to ask you, is everyone looks for a hack. Everyone wants the quick win, no matter what sort of area of life it is. You look at, I want to be a millionaire in a year. I want to have a six-pack in 6 months, or a six-pack in 6 weeks. And it's always wanting to get there as fast as possible. While I understand why, because we all want everything yesterday. Is there anything you can offer to people if they do? Is there a hack that you can offer to say, look, try this. This will help you, and it's a really easy thing to implement?
Well, like there is a lot, and I kind of get that. That's human nature, right? And with sleep, people are like, just, they want a tablet, or they want to just switch me off, or whatever. You know, they want these things, and it is tricky. But I kind of say to people, look, you wouldn't go to the gym once and say, well, it didn't work. I done it. Done the gym, didn't work. You know, or you wouldn't eat one meal and go, oh, well, it's not working. I can't see the difference. You know, so why would you be like that with sleep when the mind is the most powerful thing to kind of try and change? Like my kind of hacks, or my kind of things that I say, right, do if things fail, do this. Like one of them is actually swimming, right, or cold water therapy, right? Yeah, cold dip, sea swimming. I mean, amazing. It just seems to reset the system. Like, I've had clients who were getting such poor sleep, and sometimes I'll go, right, I want you to do a cold dip. I want you to do a full immersion cold dip, you know, in November, December, whatever it is, right? It just seems to reset the system. My other thing is to get outside in nature and just, like, go on a trek, go on a proper trek, or else go into the garden and dig the garden, weed the garden. And don't come in only to get food, and then come in, have a hot shower. I mean, it resets the system. Like, what I like about sleep is sometimes it's like that reset on the computer. If you do that reset where you do, like, you're working in the garden, say, all day, and you have a cold dip, and then you just bang, you fall asleep, and you sleep amazingly well. That can just reset your sleep system, your circadian rhythm, and everything. So then it's your job to keep on top of it. So that would be my hack. My hack would be, right, pick a day where you get up at like 6:30 a.m. You get outside, you ground yourself, you go for a walk, you dig the garden, you there's no sitting around, there's no technology. You know, you just work your ass off all day. You eat well, and then you come in the evening time and you have a hot shower, a meal, and, you know, maybe then to top it off with your partner, you can have some fun in bed. I mean, that would improve your sleep as well. People ask me about exercise. People do ask me about exercise before bed. We have to talk about sex, you know.
Is there evidence to show that actually sex helps drop off the sleep?
Yeah, people fall asleep easier. People fall asleep faster. People report much better sleep after sex. So, not to use it as a
as a trick.
Well, you know, darling, if you love me, we'd have sex every night, right? But yes, of course, and why wouldn't it? I mean, the oxytocin, the serotonin, you get these really powerful and prolactin. So
Yeah.
men secrete prolactin after sex, and you know all those things help calm, relax,
Just
make us
down.
feel wonderful. Why wouldn't you sleep? So that's my perfect day. That's my hack. Do the big reset. Dig the garden, hot shower, cold dip, great sex.
So there's something to be said. This sounds like a really weird segue because of the end point of that. But there's something to be said about when my dad always goes to me. It's the fresh air and the sea air. You come back and you're shattered. There's something to that.
Yeah. Well, my mum was always like that. You know, it's the fresh air. Get outside. It's the fresh air. It's great. Oh, sure, it's great for them. You know. So the serotonin, lots of serotonin. When you're outside, your serotonin levels go way up. Serotonin is a precursor to the sleep hormone melatonin. It's required to make it. So that, you know, that's one mechanism of why being in nature helps us immensely.
You say about the serotonin. What about a lot of people now are leaning more towards using medication to help them sleep, whether it be herbal or whether it actually be medicated medication. What is the impact of that? Because I'm a bit on the fence. Having used them before, I'm like, they're a tool, they definitely work, but then also, how good is the sleep that you have them? Like I've had the serotonin tablet, and
5-HTP,
I felt like I'd been hit by a truck the next day because I was just so dozy. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, not good. I mean, like there's a hierarchy there of supplement. Like we can look at things like floral compounds and things like magnesium, which are fine, you know. And a lot of people lack in magnesium. Magnesium biglycinate would be better than citrate. You see influencers out there who kind of do research for 5 minutes and then they start throwing stuff up on social media and they actually know nothing about it. So be careful, right, with stuff that you take, right? My father said to me many years ago, I'm not worried about the problem you have, I'm worried about the solution you're going to use. So, magnesium, fine. Things like CBD, some people find that to be very good. Other people find it to be useless. So I think it is personal as well.
Yeah.
L-theanine is an amino acid that no side effects. That's been shown to really help calm the nervous system. I found it personally very good. I have it in my locker, like literally, I have it in my locker. I don't use. I mean, I rarely use it, but if I know I need a good night's sleep now, I'll take some L-theanine.
Is that something to just add into your diet throughout the day, or is it something that I'm going to sleep in the next half hour? Do this.
So, like an hour before sleep, 200 to 400 milligrams. Because it calms the nervous system. I had one client and he's like, I don't, it's no good. It's not working. And then I found out he was taking it in the morning after he got up. I was like, no, you don't, you take it. You take it like an hour before bed. But, and here's the thing, there's no side effects with that. Now, now when you get into the medication, you're getting into over-the-counter stuff, OTC stuff.
Yeah.
Now, be careful.
Yeah.
Careful. There's products out there that are used as sleep aids and they are antihistamines. Now, I don't want to frighten people with this, right? You have to be careful. So, something called first generation antihistamines. So that when they first come out, this is the first version of the drug. Some of them are still used today. They make you drowsy.
Yep.
Prolonged use is not good. According to my friend Professor Russell Foster, in his book, he says that prolonged use over 2 years of first generation antihistamines has been associated with early onset of dementia. Now, many people take antihistamines every day because they have inflammatory conditions. Your doctor, your GP will know that it's not the first generation. So just be careful.
As you say, just because it's something, I take antihistamines quite regularly. How do you know what's first gen and what's second gen?
Talk to your GP. I mean, when you can Google it, and you will get the information there. But speak to your GP. Like a lot of them that are used now are not, but the ones that are used as sleep aids tend to be, and people go, oh, okay, I'll use this, and that's fine. It's like if they were used as they should be, it's like once in a while. But some people will just take them every night for a long period, and that's where the danger is if they're not taken how they should be. You know, alcohol then is sometimes used. You know, alcohol suppresses REM sleep. It's not.
I was going to come on to alcohol and the impact of alcohol, because I think it's a tricky one because it's such a societal norm. With my Irish side of the family, very much part of the very stereotypical big drinkers. It's a big thing. So it's very much a thing of like, I know alcohol destroys sleep.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things where, as people find that some things, some alcohols help them sleep. Red wine was one for me. So if I needed to be drowsy, red wine was the one I turned to. But it's the impact of it on the quality of the sleep.
It is. You're spot on. It's the quality it impacts. You don't go as deep in the deep sleep. It also suppresses REM sleep. One mechanism of how it works, I kind of find this funny, right, is that, when you fall asleep, your brain, so we have the prefrontal cortex, it governs everything else, right? And it's in charge of planning, short-term memory, problem solving. That's the bit of your brain going, "Ooh, I'll do this tomorrow. This is my business plan now," or whatever, right? That's the prefrontal cortex. Now, the other parts of your brain, like the emotional, the amygdala and stuff, in charge of all the different emotions. Like somebody says something to you, somebody cuts you off in traffic, you think, I'll drive him out of the car and kill them, right? And then your prefrontal cortex goes, "No, you can't do that. That would be a bad idea. Go to jail," right? Right. Now, alcohol shuts down activity in the prefrontal cortex. So then the prefrontal cortex goes, "Oh, just do whatever you want." And that's why people say things and do things when they're drunk that they shouldn't, because activity in the prefrontal cortex goes down. So there we go. And that's one of the reasons you can fall asleep, is because the thinking part of the brain is kind of
that makes
off.
So much. I mean, for me personally, that makes so much sense, because I've always said it's almost like someone turns the voices down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really creepy. It's like I've got a problem. I don't have a problem. It's just the way I've described it to my partner, because she's like, you just seem to. It's because the two weird things happen to me when I drink. One is it feels like my thinking becomes a lot clearer. So if I have like a business idea or a problem that I'm trying to solve, it almost feels like I can see the wood through the trees. Whereas if in other situations that wouldn't happen, and the other one is it just feels like someone's gone and got those 200 voices and gone, let's turn this down a tad. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. And I had a similar thing. I was doing a talk in a group of solicitors in a corporate. I do a lot of corporate work, speaking. And this girl said, "Oh yeah, the voices in your and then she kind of realized, like, she was talking about the voice in her head. She was like. And the whole room is kind of like, everyone has the voice in their head, or the voices in their head. But she suddenly became conscious, like, I don't have voices. I'm not hearing voices. Hilarious, But yeah, I mean, like, that makes perfect sense to me, because those things calm down, and all of because I tend to be like that. I've realised I'm very ADHD. Like, I can go in 20 different directions, and that's me.
So like that to find that calm is important, but it's how you find it. It's not simply viable to drink wine every night to achieve sleep.
It's one of those things I've realised, but then also very quickly realised it's not a healthy solution. You need to find another one.
Oh no, that's excellent. You're 25, so you discovered that quite early. So well done.
I think it's more as well, having a disability. God, the alcohol ache. I think I'm getting to. I feel like I'm like heading more towards the way my dad believes in alcohol, much earlier in my life.
Well, do you know what? My son, he's 5. He's nearly 6 now. He misheard, and he calls wine wined. Like, it's so accurate, isn't it? I mean, you wind down or wind up. It's like wine. So he finds it hilarious. I don't drink, actually. I don't drink alcohol at all. And he sees people drinking alcohol. He's like, "Daddy, look at what they're doing, Daddy." Like, it's illegal. He can't believe people are drinking alcohol. They're drinking. He used to call it beard, beard and wine. So there
you go. I mean, it's interesting, because it's one thing I've brought up on the podcast before, is now today's society is much more leaning towards sobriety a lot more than necessarily historically, and it's really interesting to see, because I think we're just learning so much about the the impact of alcohol. I mean, I still find the comparison. I think it was a friend or maybe an article I gave of if they went into Dragon's Den today and went, I've got this amazing liquid or chemical that if you drink it, you get really sleepy. You do stuff you shouldn't do, and then you feel terrible the next morning. I'm not even sure all of the dragons would go, yeah, no, we're okay. We're all good.
It's a terrible idea. I always think, like, I kind of always think, like an alien race comes and goes, they're drinking this, it's poison, and they're drinking, and it's making them do this. It's like, why are they destroying themselves like this? You know, they're not an intelligent race, obviously. You know, but like some people, and look, I'm not to judge at all, but I have seen, like recently in the media, we've seen that alcohol consumption has been on a steady decrease since like 2002. Like it's going down, and like that's the rise in trends of you know, sports and fitness and self-care and all that kind of health and well-being, which is great.
100%. It's definitely as well, and I think because now there's more alcohol-free options on the market as well, that's had an impact as well, because people can still get that flavour, and also it's something I've utilised of, like, you almost, because of the societal situations, it's almost like there's only so much Coke you can drink, and also there's only so much like, it feels like you're included. I've always said that. Like, people go, why'd you drink zero? So I'm like, it just feels like you're part of it then. Otherwise, you're just the odd one sitting in the corner.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so I had people question me sometimes that, why, you know, I'm like, I don't need it. I don't feel like I've any, you know, I can dance. I can get up and talk to girls. I can do whatever. I don't need it. I feel like everyone else who takes alcohol just come up to my level of insanity. Really, that's why I'm thinking about it. You know, so.
yeah, that's fair enough. One common drug that people use and we haven't actually spoken about is caffeine and the impact of caffeine.
Yes,
there's like good and bad sides of it, because there's some people that say do, like, isn't it the espresso nap or something like that, where you take it 20 minutes before you go to nap and it helps you come out the other side unscathed.
Yes, yeah, very good. I mean, it's the most consumed drug in the world. Caffeine, and I've worked with caffeine. I at one point I was giving a team caffeine. I was actually I was making a drink with creatine and caffeine and a couple of other things to give to a football team before they performed, and I was actually making it up. And like, you can't mess that up, because it's like exceptionally powerful. I mean, if I got a zero wrong, someone could have a heart attack on the pitch, and I was like with the little scales and the white powder. It looked bad, but like, I mean, I was formulating these drinks for these guys, you know. But it is useful in sport. It's useful. Yeah. It's useful, and you don't need a huge amount to get the, like, something called the dose response curve, you know. So we don't need to consume a lot of it to improve our hand-to-eye coordination or concentration levels and stuff like that. So it is good. And then, like, you know, sometimes coffee gets a bad press. Like, I love coffee, and a lot of good research there saying that it's protective for the brain. If you have 2 to 3 cups of black coffee a day, it would protect you against getting Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative disease. So it's really beneficial. And I've actually done a full episode on my podcast on sort of drinks, whether it be tea, coffee, cacao. Exceptionally good for your health as well. Really good. So there is a cut-off point. You know, some people have the gene where they can process caffeine at a fairly quick level. Some people, I think it's like 10%, don't have the gene. So they are incredibly bad with caffeine. They just find it really difficult. And then another 10% of people, they have like 2 copies of the gene and they can process caffeine much quicker. So it depends. Again, it's like the sleep. It's personal. Yeah. Where are you at? But my cutoff point is about lunchtime for caffeine. Is about 1 o'clock, 1 p.m.
Mine, I've found, although I probably should test earlier, is 3 p.m. I can't have any after 3 p.m. But the worst thing is I'm quite obsessive over it. So I'm very much looking at the clock like, right, I've got 2 minutes. And then that's it.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, I love it.
But it's really interesting because it's the whole thing of the I can't remember what the official term is, but like the shelf life of it in your system is one of the things that really messes you up if you get it wrong.
Oh yeah, people don't read it. Or people say like, I mean, I have people say to me, I couldn't sleep, so I get up and I have a cup of tea and I go back to bed. I'm like, no, that's not a good idea. Like, or people say I ignore it. It doesn't know I can fall asleep, but it impacts how deep you go in deep sleep.
Yep.
So
because I always found that as well. Because I found when I first started drinking coffee, I could go to sleep no problem. It was sort of like my after dinner thing. Now, God, that would be like you might as well give me a Red Bull and set me off.
Yeah.
Say on that note, I know you've also got some quite an interesting view when it comes to energy drinks, and it's something I wanted to bring up as well because it's something I've certainly utilised a lot. Obviously now know a lot more about them, so I'm a little bit more wary of them. But I know that you've done some research into them as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a fan of it. Like, I when they first came out, I tried them and stuff like that, like you know, many years ago and stuff, and. If you drink it, I mean, it's like rocket fuel. You drink it, you're switched on. You're like, wow, and they taste amazing and everything else. It's like, you know, I mean, this can't be good for me, right? And then I've kind of looked into them, and I think I really feel like in the future they're going to be banned, or they're going to be. I mean, there's nothing good I can find about energy drinks. Nothing good. I mean, if you look at Stanford University, Harvard University, all the leading institutes and what they say about energy drinks, it's not good news. It's not good news. And like when I was, you know, in my teens, when I was a teenager and in my early 20s and stuff, like the amount of energy I had was phenomenal. And it's like we have this trend in society now where it seems to be acceptable that teenagers of 15, 16, 17 are drinking these energy drinks, and it's, oh my God. I mean, number one, it's exceptionally bad for your health. Number two, if you need an energy drink at that, wait until you get to my age, wait until you get to 50, and we'll see then how much, you know, you will crash. You will crash and burn badly, my friend. I know I will never put another one. I haven't drunk one in years anyway, but I would never consider drinking one because there is a consequence for that spike. There is a downside crash.
Yeah,
not good news. Not good news.
No, and I think as well, it's that I think there is a huge thing that I think we need to work on as a society for my generation and younger of this whole. You can work and work and work and work and work and work and work, and that's what I think fuels the energy drink market because you've got the whole thing of. Health and fitness, you've got to be able to go to the gym so many times a week. You've got to be able to perform at top level. Then you've also got to have a side hustle on top of that. Also hold down a normal job as well because you've got to be earning enough to meet societal's expectations of you. I've spoken about it several times on the podcast of like, this is something we need to work on. Like, there's nothing wrong with people having side projects. Hello, we're sitting here on one of mine. But it's also having, as you say, having that time to be able to switch off and actually wind down instead of being on all the time.
Like those are the people who will succeed. Those are the people who will succeed. The people who realise that and who realise that it's a long path. You know, I started out, you know, 10 years ago talking about sleep, and I tell this story like I in my hometown, I advertised in the local newspaper. I done posters. I put them up in my local gyms. I spoke to everyone. I'm doing a talk. It's going to be great. It's going to be good. You know, I went to the centre, and the guy said, "Tom, how many chairs will I put out for your talk?" I said, 50. I'm expecting a big crowd. 50 chairs put out, and how many people came to my talk? 2 people. 2 people came 10 minutes late, and I was like, "Did I get the times wrong in the poster? What is happening?" And it felt like a horrible failure, you know. And you know, I mean, you just, I always kind of say, I've kind of realized that like mediocre consistency will always beat trying to hit perfection or trying to solve it all in today or this week. Like, you know, like I remember when I was younger, you do want everything. You're like, I want the results. Man, you have so much time. You have, oh my God, like I was nowhere near where you were. Absolutely Nowhere near where you were now. I can guarantee you that. Absolutely not. I've now spoken at nearly every major pharmaceutical in the world. I've spoken at, if you look across manufacturing, banking, Google, PayPal. I mean, it's just like Coca-Cola, one of my clients. Like all these incredible, huge, big, massive brand name clients that pay me to go and speak, and I get paid to stand up and speak for 45 minutes or an hour, and I've achieved that in I suppose about 10 years. So you have a ton of time. I wish I could go back to 25 again and start again. You're way ahead of me, my friend. You're way ahead of me.
Thank you. And coming on to sort of my last few questions, one of them I should have brought in earlier was I'm really intrigued by everyone's now wearing fitness trackers, whether it be Rings, whether it be Whoop, whether it be Apple Watches, Galaxy Watches, whatever it might be. So, and they also have a sleep tracking function, and it's something I've been playing with recently. But then I sat there and thought, how accurate and helpful is this? Is it just me getting obsessive, or is it actually going to help me?
It's you getting obsessive. We can get sucked into it. All right, we can get sucked into it, because what happens is you start to like want to hit your targets, right? How accurate are they? They're very accurate when telling you if you're awake or asleep, about 80 to 90%. But then when it comes to the deeper level data of REM sleep and how much time you spent in different phases of sleep, the accuracy level can drop down quite quickly to about 60%. What does the guy say in Anchorman? 60% of the time? It's right every time. So, right, it's we can't base our decisions on that. And there's research there to show that when people wake up and check their sleep trackers, it can change their mind about how they slept, and they can have a bad day, related to that. So don't let it, I would track in a rough way. I would kind of go 7 hours, 7.5 hours, 6 hours. I get people to back away from that. Otherwise, you'd start waking up in the middle of the night to see if you're hitting your sleep targets.
Yeah. And the last question before I ask my very last question is actually a bit of a bonus question that I was intrigued to see if you were able to answer. There's a lot of discussions within the disabled community, particularly those of us that have got physical disabilities, which is the part of the camp that I'm part of, where there's a big belief that we expend more energy than your average Joe because we have to work harder to do the basic tasks. With that in mind, there's also the discussion of we burn more energy, need more food, X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. Is there any evidence to show that we have any correlation between that and sleep? Do disabled individuals tend to need more sleep?
People who expend more energy will need more sleep. So mechanistically, like the thing that makes you feel tired is sleep pressure. I've mentioned it. You wake up in the morning, you feel groggy. That's sleep pressure. That's a chemical called adenosine.
Yeah.
So sleep pressure is adenosine. How do we create adenosine in the body? It's a byproduct of energy production. So if we're working harder to do things, we're producing more adenosine, we're producing more sleep pressure, we're going to sleep longer, and the requirement is more. So the only kind of key thing here is that true that you're expending more energy or more effort?
I mean, it's something that I've always... It's something I've always been suspicious of, because I sit there and go, on the one hand, it makes complete sense, and there is evidence to back up the fact that we do use more energy. But then on the other side of it, we don't use more energy because we might not have the muscle mass that your average Joe has got. We're not doing some of the daily tasks that your average Joe would. Like, I don't... If you go by my step tracker thinks I'm dead. So it's a really tricky one to draw a conclusion of. So I was just intrigued to see what you'd see.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point. I think it can be more mentally taxing. Like physically, you might not be doing the steps right or burning the energy that way, but like mentally, that can take a toll. Mentally, it can be like, oh, it's such a pain in the ass to do this. Like, that's where it could be mentally more draining for you.
I mean, that makes complete sense, because I suppose there is the other, particularly with my condition, CP, it's very much a neurological thing of just things are just harder to do. So we naturally, so that does make sense, and also probably makes sense as to why I love my bed so much. When I eventually get into it and actually get to sleep, I'm a big fan.
Wonderful.
And last but not least is a question I ask every guest at the end of every episode, which is, what's one piece of politically correctness that you really strongly agree with or disagree with?
Stop getting offended. Like, you like, have a sense of humor, or like, you're I'm offended. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Give everyone else the right to be wrong.
Yeah.
People who have to kind of stomp around and tell people how offended they are at this, that, or the other. Grow up, loosen up. I'm. That's my
It's really interesting. I mean, that was a big part of why I started the Not Quite Pod, because I started out very much involved in the disabled, still am involved in the disabled community, but that was what our brand initially started as. And it was purely the fact of, I felt that we got too caught up in the weeds when it comes to people being offended, people using the right terminology, whereas my belief system, different to some people, is let people get it wrong and we can fix the errors later on. Let's fix the big problems. A big one, I think, across the board in any country is disabled people can't even access public transport. Are we really worried about what they should really call a disabled toilet? It's a big debate. I mean, I'm definitely in the minority, but yeah, you perfectly linked in with some of the beliefs around the Not Quite Pod and Not Quite Politically Correct. So...
Goes. I'm with you on that 100%. There's always bigger issues. Go out and feed, go out and help starving children if you want a cause, mate. I don't give a shit if you're offended. Grow
100%. 100%. But I've really enjoyed this conversation, Tom. I mean, I've learnt so much, and also I could probably sit here for another hour asking you different questions about sleep, because it's one of those things that I think we all need to get better at, but we also need to stop putting pressure on ourselves, because I think there's a lot of people speaking about sleep, but then it can become similar to the fitness industry of, there's so much information, you don't know what's right, what's wrong. There's nuance to everything. So it's been really, really interesting chatting to you and sort of really getting to grips as to how people can improve their sleep and some of the common misconceptions. But yeah, Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on. I will, of course, link Tom's details, everything below, his podcast, his work, and where you can find him. If you want to ask him a question, I will link it, everything below. But thank you so much for coming on.
You're a gent. Thanks for having me, Charlie. I've really honestly enjoyed this conversation. It's been great fun, and keep up the good work. And I'm jealous because you're so far ahead of me at 25.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Not Quite Podcast. Please make sure you follow us on TikTok and Instagram to get regular updates about the podcast.